Hello everyone, welcome to the channel. This is going to be my first attempt at making this kind of video, so I'm sorry if the quality isn't exactly up to snuff, but I just wanted to express how me and I feel like a lot of people are feeling about the new Spider-Man film. Because I've watched it and it's really good. I gotta say it's definitely one of my favorite films of this year. Even though I really enjoyed Guardians 3. Guardians 3 is a fantastic movie. And I'm really excited to watch Transformers, because I love Transformers. Spider-Verse is definitely my favorite movie of this year. It just hits so many different marks for me, and I want to cover a lot of those different points today. I'd also like to say at the start of this video, huge spoiler warning. If you haven't watched the movie, I'd recommend you click off now, go enjoy it, have a great time, and then come back. And also, any material in this video that is used for the purpose of review. I do not claim ownership of any material, and it is all owned by its original copyright owners. But hey, let's get right into it, shall we? A lot like the first film, the visuals that are on display here are amazing, right? The movie looks so good, and it's just so vibrant and full of color. All the little details of this movie easily let you know as the viewer that a lot of love went into it, right? This is a passion project. And to list one of the things that I love is Gwen's universe. It's a very watercolor-esque world. It's really cool, and the way it changes to suit the scene or the mood of a character is really good. For example, when Gwen and her father are having a little argument, the world is very desaturated, right? There's a lot of all these melancholic colors, like a deep blue. But then, when they actually hug, it starts to brighten up. That it shows that even though they're having this disagreement, Gwen still deeply loves her father, and he loves her too. It's really nice. It's a lot of visual storytelling, which I really appreciate. Another really cool bit of animation that I love is Reno Vulture. The way he's just drawn on parchment, I think is so cool. And hammer space being an actually accepted thing that some people can have as a power set is brilliant. I love it. Yeah, there's so many shots in this movie that are just eye candy, right? Like 2099 on the roof, just Spider-Punk as a character, and especially Spot. Spot is amazing. I love how the animation style also links to whatever character they're attached to, right? So Miles' animation is very gangly in a way. He kind of sways his limbs around a lot, especially when he's moving, and I think that's a great way of showing off that he is still a little inexperienced, right? He hasn't gotten every motion down, and characters like Miguel have these harsh, heavy movements to show off their, imposing stature and aggression. Overall, I'm in love with the animation in this movie, right? And I really think that Spider-Verse is pushing animation to become a more respected and mature form of storytelling, and I think it inspires people to make more animated projects. But anyway, let's talk about the characters of this film, okay? Speaking of characters, let me know in the comments what your favorite character is from Spider-Verse. Personally, I really like Peter Parked Car. That got way more of a laugh out of me than it should have. I'll try and keep this segment short, but it's going to be hard because a lot of the characters in this film are really well made. What better place to start than with Harlem's very own Spider-Man, right? And Miles as a character in this film is just so endearing, right? He's trying his best to be Spider-Man, and frankly, he's doing a great job. He understands the essence of Spider-Man really well, and how he's a down-to-earth hero who really tries his best to do right by the people he loves. I feel like this keeps Miles relatable during the film, despite the fact that, he can run up the side of a building. And it's a trait that generally permeates through most iterations of Spider-Man, and I think it plays a huge part in his popularity, because you'll have some characters that are relatable in a sense that they're just people, like the Punisher and Iron Man. Or not everyone's capable of the same levels of violence as the Punisher, or not everyone's as intelligent or inventive as Tony Stark. The whole point of Spider-Man wearing a mask is that it can be anyone, right? Anyone can pick up the Spider-Man mantra and wear it for themselves. All it takes is determination, a will to do good by people, and apparently a dead relative. Also, a quick side note before I move on to the supporting cast. I'd like to quickly say that Miles is honestly a perfect example of diversity within media. He is a black Latino, but neither of those things end up being crutches to him as a character. I feel like often in modern media, those two traits can kind of dominate and hijack the portrayal of a character, and it ultimately ends up harming the original intent. However, in Miles' case, they feel like a very natural part of who he is. And it's really good, and it never feels like it's being pushed onto you, which is amazing. So yeah, love you, Miles. Anyway, on to his mates. The supporting cast in this film are great. Like, Gwen gets a lot of development, and it's really good. It shows us her life outside of the whole Spider-Verse thing, how, everything that went down with Peter, and it shows that her relationship or friendship with Miles really means a lot to her, right? It's really important. Your boy Pav, Pav's great. Love that little guy. He's, I didn't know a lot about Spider-Man India, and I don't really know still, but definitely loved him in this film. His voice is spot on. I love his suit design. The way he swings is really funny. And his jokes are funny little bloke, isn't he? Obviously, I found the British joke really funny. Speaking of Brits, God forbid we speak about the Brits, right? Spider-Punk is amazing. I didn't think I was going to like him going in. I saw a bit of marketing material that said he's going to be in some sort of weird love triangle. Nah. My boy Hobie's a G. He's an absolute lad. I love him to pieces. His just everything from his animation to his art style, the punk design, and it honestly caught me by surprise because I knew Spider-Punk was British, but I didn't know he was like a road man, right? Like, that man is a full-on Londoner, which is really funny. It was really cool seeing a level of British representation that I haven't seen before. Right? Like, he was using mandem and pint, which are very common British slang terms. And it felt really refreshing because most British representation within media is all mustache-twirling villains or child murderers in rabbit suits. A really small detail is that I loved his old rhyming scheme that he used, the I ain't got a Scooby-Doo. Because I actually used that growing up. I remember my grandmother used to say, I'm going up Appleant Bears, which means to go up the stairs. Which, really appreciate that, man. It's really cool to see. I'll keep this last bit brief because I've been talking about characters for a while now, but Miguel is an interesting character in this film, right? I was never really attached to Miguel as a character. I grew up with a little bit of him here and there. I played Shattered Dimensions, and I did like him there. I liked his different power set with the fangs and the claws, and especially the web wings, which I'm happy a lot more Spider-Man in current media are using the web wings. It's very cool. I feel like Miguel's characterization in this film feels like a natural development from where I kind of know him from. I feel like Miguel has always been a Spider-Man who's tried to do the right thing for the sake of the greater good, and not so much for the sake of people. And it's a key part of his character, the fact that he never really got that Spider-Man mantra. Feels like a really natural development in this movie for him. And also, speaking of development, Christ, has he been hitting the gym. God! I never thought I'd see the day where half of Twitter is simping for Spider-Man 2099, but here we are. Well, enough talk about the heroes of this movie. How about we talk about the villain? Looking back, it's gonna feel a little bit weird that the smallest section of this video is the animation, considering how much I love it, but this section shouldn't be as long as the character bit, because I just wanted to speak on it, and the fact that Spider-Verse really did it again, didn't they? They took a pretty unpopular character and made them into just a fantastic antagonist. Because the Prowler was somewhat known at the time of the first film. Well, you kind of knew who the Prowler was, but the movie kind of bumped his popularity, and especially that theme song. But Spot is someone that you can compare to, like Polka Dot Man. He's this just nobody character. He's literally a villain of the week. So the fact that he got that revamp, it did wonders for him, because due to the nature of his powers being so unexplored, it gives the writers a lot of creativity when it comes to using him, and they really put that on display in this film. It went from a villain of the week to a trans-dimensional threat in like the space of an hour. I love when he's fiddling with the collider in Parv's dimension. He's saying directly into the monitor that he's going to be so much more than a villain of the week. And I love that personally on two different levels, because one, I think it's Spot looking into his reflection and seeing the potential within himself to really be this larger than life threat in Spider-Man's life. And I also think it's great because the monitor could also represent the screen that the viewer themselves is watching the movie on. He is directly saying to the audience his plan of becoming so much more than they think he is, and it works. At the time, I was thinking Spot is a great revamp for the villain, but ultimately he is not this huge, threat, right? He's not this huge villain to any character. But he's actively telling the audience that, yeah, I'm not a villain yet, but I will be. Miles says to him in this movie that you're a great villain. And Spot simply responds with, not yet I'm not, which is great foreshadowing. It's very foreboding. It helps the audience kind of understand Spot's mental along with where he can end up. And it's almost like the Spot isn't satisfied just being that great villain. He wants more. He wants the audience to remember him. And it's safe to say that I won't forget Spot for a while, right? I love this character. His music, the chaotic, volatile, it looks like he's gonna collapse in on himself when he's powered up. It looks so sick. And the addition of a voice filler really does hammer home the difference in power now. And something I feel like a lot of people might have not picked up on Spot, which I really like, is the whole posture thing, right? When he first takes off his hat and glasses in the convenience store, we see the Spot. We see this kind of goofy, slunch? That's not a word. We see this kind of goofy, slumped posture, and, it's silly, and it's meant to look silly. But when he becomes powered up, that posture becomes weirdly creepy, right? It's unnerving. It makes Spot seem inhuman, which is fantastic, honestly. But yeah, no, I love Spot. He breaks the notion of the villain of the week and shows that given the right motivation and opportunity, a villain of the week has just as much potential for, nonsense in a Spider-Man's life that the other villains do. Moving on from this section, that's going to require a lot of editing. Alright, this section is going to be very big, so get ready for this, right? Because I love the music in this movie. It's genuinely fantastic. And before I speak on personal themes, I'd like to speak on the actual, music in the movie. And I'd like to say the soundtrack is fantastic, right? I don't listen to a lot of Metro Boomin, but that's probably gonna have to change, because I really love a lot of the tracks on here. Funnily enough, at the time of writing this script, I was listening to Silk and Cologne, which, great song, man. And I can say my personal favorite ones from this album are Am I Dreaming, Hummingbird, and Mona Lisa. Because those songs just have different vibes, man. I love it. Especially Am I Dreaming, the violin at the very start. Amazing. Love it. When I talk about music in this film, let's be honest, right? Let's be honest. Let's not lie to each other. There's one thing that comes into everyone's head. You know exactly what I'm talking about. 2099's theme just hit different in the movie theater, right? The impact from him coming out of that portal was awe-inspiring, right? It's a beautifully ominous theme that also ties into the whole futuristic Spider-Man shtick that he's got going on. And it does a fantastic job at introducing the audience to Miguel. And every future use of this theme kind of intensifies the crumbling mental state that Miguel has, right? He is losing it during this film. I feel like this theme is best viewed through the eyes of an onlooker. If you imagine that you are just a civilian at the scene of one of these events, the sharp and harsh opening accentuates the imposing figure that Miguel has, and the loud booming part of it symbolizes Miguel's frankly violent entrance onto a scene, right? Onto this anomalous event. And then there's a slow building of tension with some synth. And that's kind of, the onlooker's head, the gears are turning, thinking, who is this person? Who is he? All they can really see is this advanced tech and like this hollow suit that he's got on. So it's obviously some kind of like futuristic vibe. So that's the use of synth, right? And the general cyber feel of the track. Is the onlooker like, okay, I'm kind of understanding this? And then the way the theme just ends, right? It just stops. And that's the same with the onlooker. As soon as Miguel arrived, he vanishes just as quickly. And it's great. The onlooker's just left with unanswered questions and a general vast silence. It's beautiful. The themes I actually want to talk about in depth are Spot's, right? Because I'm a huge fan of Spot in this film, and I'm pretty much going to read this word for word because I really want to hammer home the points that I have. Spot's themes are very fitting for the character journey he goes on in this film. And he has his first theme and his second, labeled Spot Holes 1 and 2. Amazing naming scheme, guys. Jesus. The first one plays when Spot beats himself up and ends up inside himself. It's a very avant-garde and ethereal kind of theme, and I believe that plays into the whole theme of self-discovery. It can often be seen as a very spiritual thing, so the ethereal feel of the track plays into that. Spot is discovering more about himself by literally being within himself. And self-discovery is a very important experience for a lot of people. A strong sense of self helps give people meaning, right? It helps them live. It's like when you ask someone what happens after we die. Everyone has their own answer that brings them comfort and peace of mind. But Spot doesn't have a sense of self after losing what is, to him, everything, right? He's lost his job, his family, and even his face. And you can see how much this bothers him in the film. Because he says, by scientist standards, he was actually quite handsome. And this shows a clear pride in his appearance. And it's a pride that he can no longer have after the Collider incident. His discovery that his holes can lead him anywhere he wants should give him a new hope for life, right? He can go anywhere and he can be anyone he wants to be. But instead, his insecurity feeds into megalomania. He needs to be someone, right? To get his revenge on the one person he thinks wronged him. And Spot figures that using the newfound power, he can get what he needs, when in reality he's only getting what he wants. I believe Spot is insecurity and the need for individuality personified. I feel like often in life people will double down on their insecurities and will say it's just who I am. And they'll feed into this negative mindset where it ultimately doesn't help solve their problem, right? If someone has a drinking problem and goes out a lot, they'll just say it's because it's who I am, instead of admitting that they have a problem. It helps mask the pain that they're feeling, but it doesn't make it go away. And I feel like Spot is the same. In this film, he says he figured out how to help with the holes inside him. Just make more holes, right? Just bury the pain deeper and deeper till he doesn't feel it anymore. And he only wants his life back, right? And he wants to recover that lost sense of self, to regain that stability he once had. But he can't do that. So he takes his anger out and focuses it on the person he thinks ruined him, Spider-Man. Spot's second theme plays into his new power, right? The vast multiversal threat that he's become and what he plans to do with this power. In the Collider scene, we can see Miles and Spot's faces overlap. And then we see the vision of Miles' father dying. It's an interesting scene to me because it shows Miles the canon event in which his father is supposed to die. And throughout the film, Miguel constantly says that Miles is an anomaly. He says that if he were never bit, then his Peter would still be alive and the Spot wouldn't exist. And I find it fascinating as it's Spot who is technically pushing Miles further into being a canon Spider-Man. It's assumed that if Spot is going to be responsible for the death of Miles' father, or at least making that canon event possible, it begs the question, if he was never made, would this event still happen? Or would there be a new way that Miles' father would die? I don't have a definitive answer for you, but it's just fun food for thought, right? If you have any idea about how that would play out or any thoughts, please let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear about it. Back to the theme. The haunting new sound of Spot's theme perfectly reflects his new design as this twitching mass of instability, right? He looks as if he can just collapse. He just goes in on himself at any moment. And something I love about Spot's final theme that I feel like slips under a lot of people's radar, which, I mean, hey, if I make you aware of it, more power to you, right? Spot's theme, at least the second one, it opens with a whistle, right? And whistles are predominantly used to get someone's attention, which is great storytelling, because now that Spot is powered up, this is him essentially saying to Miles, right, you know, I have your attention, you're going to remember me. You can't call me a villain of the week and push me aside anymore. You now have to focus on me, which is it's beautiful storytelling. God, it's finally over. I cannot stress how much I love this movie, and especially goofy ass Spot. Look at him. Look at this goofy goober. I love him. He's so good, man. Okay, let's wrap this up. Alright, let's talk about the ending for the movie, because for me it's very exciting. And it was great seeing Uncle Aaron again, and I really like Miles as the Prowler. I think he looks so cool. And I've heard a lot of complaints from people regarding the climax of the film, because it felt very anticlimactic to them. I know a couple of my friends share that sentiment of they would have liked a climax. Obviously I understand why they can't be, because it is a, you know, part 1 of 2. You don't have a climax halfway through a movie, technically. But, the way I see it is, oh, I get to enjoy more of some of the best Spider-Man media I've seen in years. Count me in, right? Especially with it coming out fairly soon. I mean, it's probably going to be pushed back, let's be honest. And I definitely do understand a lot of people's frustrations with the ending, because it did feel a little anticlimactic, especially because it wasn't marketed as a 2-parter. I know they kind of wanted to keep it a surprise, but like, I definitely felt it wasn't a resounding success, that ending in the theater. I definitely felt a lot of people that had mixed feelings about it. But the way it leads us is very interesting, right? I have a lot of speculation I want to do regarding the next movie, and funnily enough, I shared some of these ideas with my mate Nick and my other mate Luke on the way home from a Tesco. I'm sorry in advance, because this section of the video is going to be a lot of loose speculation with very minimal tidbits of evidence to back up my claims, if any evidence at all. A couple things I think could happen, and granted not all of these things have to happen, right? I'm just spitballing ideas, is that I believe either Miles 42, which is what I'm going to be calling Prowler Miles, I believe Miles 42 or Spot could be kind of redeemed, because Miles 42 has been the Prowler in this universe, don't know how long for, but he was meant to be this universe's Spider-Man, right? So he probably still has those deep-rooted heroic values somewhere within him, and it would probably take interaction with our Miles to help him rediscover those values. God forbid he gets his hands on a symbiote, because that's going to cause all kind of problems. But I think Spot could be redeemed in this movie. So humor me, picture this if you will. In the next film, near the climax of it, Miles falls into Spot, or maybe the multiverse is just being torn apart at the seams. Essentially, a white canvas, right? A blank slate. And he sees all the inner turmoil and pain that Spot's going through. He sees why he feels this way. This would take place after Miles' canon event with his father, right? So Miles would be very emotionally unstable. I feel like, despite him proving himself time and time again, I feel like a lot of people still say Miles isn't Spider-Man, right? They say he still has to prove himself. So how about we have Miles do the most Spider-Man thing imaginable, right? Have him sit down with Spot. He's in this blank space, and he just offers to sit down with Spot. Spot creates some kind of, I don't know, like a black bench they can both sit down on. And they just talk. And it's just them talking about how they feel. And Miles apologizing for what he did to Spot, and, vice versa, Spot apologizing to him too. Miles saying that, I can't forgive you for what you've done. You've caused me a lot of pain. I am willing to help you start again. He would essentially offer Spot a deal. He would kind of jokingly call him his arch nemesis, and he'd have regular fights with him. He would have staged fights with him. There's no major damage and there's no casualties. It'd be like a performance. And I think Spot genuinely would consider this offer, because he's not a bad person at all. By any means, Spot is not a bad person. But yeah, I think he genuinely would consider this, especially because in the dimension with Parv, you can see in the Collider of the room, he is showing empathy because he is teleporting innocent scientists out of the Collider room almost as a strange way of saying, you know, this happened to me. I don't want it to happen to anyone else. He is ultimately a good person. He's just misguided. He is broken, in a sense. And I feel like this show of forgiveness from Spider-Man would put him back on the right path. And this, you know, this recognition and an offer to help him get his life back together. Spider-Man is human, and his rogue gallery is filled with a lot of deeply troubled people. And Peter would always try and help these people if they would just let him. There's so many different stories of Peter helping his own villains. Look at the entire concept of Doc Ock, or the story where Sandman's dying and Peter sits with him and talks with him. Beautiful moments like that, I feel like, are what makes Spider-Man who he is. And to have Miles do that would not only help with his character growth, it would give him so much character growth. Imagine that. Your father dies and you choose to forgive. It's the same way Tobey's Spider-Man said that he forgives you to Sandman, right? Even after he killed his Uncle Ben. It shows huge character strength. It would finally give this boy the damn respect he deserves, man, because people still hate on Miles. I don't know why. Bro, to me, he is the ultimate Spider-Man. So why not have him put aside his grievances and have him choose the heroic road? It's what a hero would do. Well, no, it's what Spider-Man would do. And Lord knows Miles is Harlem's very own. I'd like to say thank you all so much for watching this video. It's my first real attempt at making a full-length video, and I feel like there's a lot I could have done better, but I'm pretty happy with the end product. Knowing my look, some random dude living in Bufu, Egypt owns the rights to one of the background songs I've used, or like the half-a-second clips of character themes I've used are gonna get me claimed, but hopefully that's not the case. If you enjoyed the video and want to share your feedback or what you thought about Spider-Verse, then please let me know in the comments below. Please feel free to criticize my video, as it does help me grow as a creator. I'll also leave my Twitter in the description if you want to see what I'm up to on there. Going forward, I'm going to work on a video series for the upcoming game Exoprimal. I'm still kind of toying around with the concept, trying to get everything in place for it, but I think you guys will actually really like it. Afterward, I plan to work on a Monster Hunter series, and I'd love to hear suggestions from you guys on what videos you'd like to see in the future. I really can't thank you all enough for watching, and I'm super excited to keep making content for you in the future. Another video should be out before the end of the month, but I'll see you then. Peace.